Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father loves me, so I love you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, to love one another as I have loved you. There is no greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command of you. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. Instead, I call you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. This is my commandment, to love one another." Hello and welcome to Close Walk Catholic Communications. I'm Father Bayer, your host. We're glad that you can join us. No greater love than this exists, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. That's interesting. Try this. You have a crucifix in your house? We always have looked at crucifix as a sign of great suffering. Go look at that crucifix and just stand there and say, no greater love than this exists, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Just gotta look at it. Next time you go into church, and hopefully you get there before the priest does and not after he gets to the altar, go and prepare and just kneel or sit and stare at the crucifix in church. No greater love than this exists, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. It's very, very interesting. It's very interesting to equate love with sacrifice. You know, one of the things that we as priests have to do is prepare people for marriage. And you know, young kids come in and they're so in love and they can't keep their hands off each other. You don't know if they're in love or if they're in heat, but they're, oh, they're so wonderful. You know, they're so beautiful and they smell so good. Give them 1 week of marriage to let the bloom be off that rose, okay? But anyway, you know, everything is so great and so wonderful. And then we have these pre-Cana programs. And you have these young couples who are bright and intelligent and well-spoken and articulate and healthy-looking, and they're given pre-Cana talks and telling them, you know, how to share and, you know, how not to insist on your way. I've had situations in life that I've really, really wanted to have these old married couples be my pre-Cana story. And maybe I've told you this, I've told it before and I don't forget. My very first parish, it was a couple who lived in the parish. I'm the new priest. I've been given a communion route. And here, go bring these people communion. Here's the address. So I knock on the door, and the car is there. I know it's an older couple, the car is there. And I knock, and I wait a few minutes, I can hear stuff inside. And I knock again, and about 5 minutes into it, this old skinny white guy in his swimming suit comes to the door and says, "Oh, come on in, Father, we'll be with you in a minute." And he said, "We were just taking a shower." And so I'm saying, I don't know what's going on or what I've interrupted, okay? But anyway, I waited about 15 minutes. And here, he's got his wife on his arm, and she's walking, and she's kind of got a palsy going on in the shaking head, you know. And she looks beautiful. She's got her dress on, her hair's fixed, her makeup is beautiful. And of course, she's got on pants and shirt at this time. And he said, "Look at her. Look at my baby doll. Isn't she beautiful?" And she really wasn't verbally responsive. She just kept patting my hand and patting his hand. So, I mean, I instantly fell in love with this old couple, okay? And every year, after the Vigil Mass on Christmas and before the Midnight Mass, I'd make communion rounds. And that's what I would bring them for Christmas, the Lord, you know? And they were always my last couple, and they'd leave the door unlocked. And I might get there at 10 o'clock at night. And I'd go in, of course, they'd always be in bed, and I'd just crawl up in bed with them. You're just, you know, and laughing. You know, I'd say, "You're the only man I ever let get in bed with my wife," you know. And I'd give them communion and then go back for the midnight mass. And the story was they were both teachers. They had one son who was married, had a couple children, but died of some freak thing at the age of 27, and they were alone. And so I get a call, she's in the hospital. And she's really, really bad off. And she's got that very shallow breathing. And he's sitting there, and he's holding her hand. And he's just rubbing her hand. He's telling her, "Baby, don't worry about it. I'm fine. You go get your rest. You go with God, and you don't need to worry about me." And he's saying this. I mean, tears are just rolling out of his head. And she died within a couple hours, you know, and I went. Now that's my pre-Cana story. That's what it means that no greater love than this exists, that a man should lay down his life for those that he loved. And trust me, after Cora died, he didn't have any reason to get out of bed in the morning. He was a lost goose. I mean, just, what's the point? Why get out of bed? She's not here. And it really was an incredible example of unselfish love. You know, when you're young and you're healthy and you're looking forward to all the new things and the passion and the excitement and the children and the, you know, the t-ball and your children growing up and a wedding and all that, it's all fine. But boy, when you're on the back nine and you're getting close to the clubhouse, that's when it's really a challenge to understand what God has in store for us. And so oftentimes, that sacrificial love is what we need to understand. And I use this story of Conley and Cora, but I've seen it time and time again, where these wonderful, loving couples, you know, I didn't sign on for that. You know, I thought till death do us part, and, you know, in sickness and in health, and I thought I'd make him soup when he got a cold and stuff like that. I didn't think I'd be changing diapers and hooking up catheters. I didn't think I'd be doing that. But it's all part of what we can do. It's all part of loving. And when we have a tendency or a fantasy to think that loving means, you know, just having these wonderful times of affection and enjoyment and all these different things, and we can all live happily ever after. Well, that's a great part of it. But there really is another part if you're blessed to live so long. And that's a challenging part of it. I'm going to sidetrack here. Somebody sent me an email and say, you know, You know, the Andy Griffith Show? How everyone was so happy and life was so wonderful and peaceful in Mayberry. Did you know why that was? Nobody was married. Andy wasn't married, Aunt B, Barney, of course, Opie, Thelma Lou, Clara, you know, Floyd the barber. No one was married in Mayberry except Otis. And he was married, but he stayed drunk all the time, okay? But it's kind of a joke, but I thought I had to throw that in, a little lighten up, okay? But the idea that no greater love than this exists, that one should lay down his life for those that he loves. And of course, you know, we all know where that comes from, but all of us are not willing to do that. I've seen it with parents. I really have. I've seen parents just give up their life to take care of a special needs child. You know, when God gives us a special needs child, you know, at first we think, why did God do this to us? Then we understand they're called special for a reason, because they really, really are. But as you age, you worry about what's going to happen to that child, because you certainly hope that you will go before they do. And I had a young couple get married, and he was the man about town, made a ton of money, you know, and stuff like that, and had a string of bimbos on his arms, okay, and just, you know, and then he calls me, he's getting married. I said, well, I got to meet this one. Well, come to find out, she got more money than he does. I mean, just, you know, and all these companies, everything, I'm going, this is going to really be interesting. I don't know how impressed I'm going to be. So I call it, you know, the little couple comes to see me. And now realizing these are two young people, they're not even married yet. And I'm going to say between the two of them, they're worth $5 million, okay? They're bright, they're beautiful, they're handsome and all that. And I said, well, man, I said, I can't believe you finally get married. Why? Why her? You know? And you know what he told me? He said, because I know when my parents die, my little sister, who's got special needs, she loves her and she'll live with us. I thought, man, was I wrong. All this rich and famous and beautiful lifestyles and the stream of gorgeous women, he finally found one who loved his special needs sister as much as he did. And he realized that his special needs sister would be taken care of all of her life. And that's why he gave up, you know, all this string of women. That's really, really what our Lord is talking about. People who are willing to bring about sacrificial love. If you're not willing to engage in sacrificial love and put others, their life, their health, their happiness, and their well-being before yourself, please don't get married. And please don't think about being a priest or a religious. You got to do that if we want to imitate the Father. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Hi, I'm Father Jeff Bae from Closer Walk Catholic Communications. Thank you for being here today, and a special thanks for the support that you give us. First of all, your prayerful support we so desperately need, and also your financial support. We are donor-driven, and that is what keeps us on the air today. As you well know, the truth is in great demand and in very short supply, and mainstream media is not going to bring you the truth of the Gospels of our Lord Jesus Christ, because that's not socially acceptable and it's not politically correct. Certainly we all realize that when this life journey's over, we don't stand before the Supreme Court, we stand before the throne of God. Therefore, with great clarity and great charity, to pronounce the truth of the gospel is important. Your prayers, your financial support enables us to do that. So we thank you, and may God bring you closer in your walk with the Lord each day. God bless you. You are my friends if you do what I command of you. I no longer speak of you as slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. Instead, I call you friends, because I have told you everything that I have heard from my Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you. Oh, welcome back to Close to Walk Catholic Communications. I'm Father By, your host, and we're glad you came back. You're my friends if you do what I command of you. Let's get that real straight. Who gives the commands here? Who gives the commandments here? Doesn't say you are my friends if you like me, and you are my friends if you say your prayers before you go to bed. Doesn't say you are my friends if you make your own suggestions. You are my friends if you do what I command of you. And I think the people who truly find the greatest joy in their faith life are ones who really do accept that we're here to serve God. And God's in charge. It's his ball, it's his court, it's his game. And I don't have to do anything other than to do everything I can to remain faithful. That's my challenge, is to do what I can do to remain faithful to God. And that really is a challenge. It's a challenge for a lot of us. And I, for one, can tell you, we all fall short. I know I do. And I fall short on a daily basis of not being and becoming what it is God expects for me. And one of the things that I've always beat myself up from, and it's funny, when you serve as a priest in the hometown where you grew up, you end up running into a lot of people who knew you when you weren't a priest. I was first ordained. I had been living away for the last 8 years. I come out of Mass one Sunday in a big church, and a lot of people around, and there's someone standing behind me, and I hear them, "I can't believe this stuff." They didn't say stuff. And, "I can't believe this." And I turn around, there's a guy I went to grade school with. He said, "Man, you of all people," okay? And, oh well, God's got a sense of humor. What can I tell you? But I think it's important. I think it's important that we come to realize that God chooses certain people for certain tasks. When I was a kid, I went to a CYO convention out in Denver, Colorado. That was a big deal. And in the day, Art Linkletter, for those of us a certain age, used to have this kid show called House Party. But anyway, he was a guest speaker. And he spoke about two things. He spoke about a son of his who got into drugs in the 60s, had a flashback from acid, jumped out of a second-story window and killed himself. And he talked about a special needs child that he and his wife had given birth to. And he just was so upset that God had done this to his beautiful little girl. And then the evolution, the journey, the understanding, and the great joy and the great praise. It was not you. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you. I really do believe that God chooses us for certain people. I think God chooses us for certain tasks. I think God chooses us for certain crosses that we carry in life. You know, I've had friends of mine who have been horrible alcoholics and have been wonderful addiction counselors. And to be honest with you, prior to their very sloppy life, their addiction, and everything you leave in your wake with addiction, they've become some of the most influential, powerful, spiritual people that I know. And it was because God used that to bring them to a place in their life where God had a plan that they certainly couldn't see when they were drunk in a gutter and hugging a bottle. They didn't see that part of it. The part that they, now they come to understand that all this is part of God's plan. He brought me here for a reason. And that idea of God brings us to certain places for reasons in our life, and there are people who have lost children, and now, there's a new law about Amber Alert, and when a child is kidnapped and everything, and their ability to use the pain, to use the suffering, to see that not as simply God has abandoned me, but to take their suffering and their pain and to be consecrated in it, consecrated in that pain. And in that pain, find a whole new way to do for others and be for others that never, ever would have happened. And if they had their choice to go back and lose a child, they still wouldn't choose to give up that child. But the opportunities, the doors that God has opened in their life because of what they suffered has become redemptive. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you to go forth and to bear fruit. One of my favorites, you've heard it before, and you're getting ready to hear it again. Louis Evely on a book in Sufferings, out of our pain, out of our shame, our God creates virtues that never, ever would have existed had we not first suffered. I love it. The thing is when, you say stuff like, it was not you who chose me, but I who chose you. People say, God didn't choose me for anything. The only thing God chose me for was a lot of heartache, failure, and grief. And I have no idea why God has me here unless he gets a kick out of watching me suffer. God didn't bring you here for that. But the question is in the middle of our suffering, what do you ask God? What do you ask God? What or why? Why, God? Why did I have this addiction? Why did I lose this child? Why do I have that disease? Why? You ever got that answer? I'm still waiting on it too. It ain't coming. What? What, Lord? What am I supposed to know? What am I supposed to do? What are you trying to teach me and create in me and give me that I'm not catching on to right now, God? I know this suffering's not in vain. I look at your son. His suffering, we thought the suffering and the death was the end of the story. Then there was new life. Lord, where's the new life? Where is it that you want me? You know, keep my commandments. My joy may be yours and your joy may be complete. You lay down your life for those that you love. Well, I've given everything, and now I'm busted. Now I'm broke. Now I'm alone. Now I don't have anything. Lord, what is it? What is it? And it's not a, easy question. You gotta keep searching. You gotta keep praying. But I'm telling you, if the only thing you approach God with is why, if the only thing you approach God with is what has been taken from you, rather than a profound sense of gratitude for what has been given to you, you'll never get it. You'll never get it. You'll never deal with loss unless you deal with the gift that has first been given. If you think I deserve it, if you think God owes it to me, if you think everybody else has it, besides I didn't get as much as a lot of people got, if that's where you are, you're lost, baby. If you get to that point where you look at life, and I'm profoundly grateful. I've always heard that real joy comes not when you have everything you want, but real joy is found in wanting everything you have, even the suffering, because God's going to bring something good out of that. Ask the guy who had the heart attack, and no one thought he would make it, and the whole family comes up, and we finally say, I'm sorry, and we finally act like family, and we finally say all the things that we should have said all these years before, and they get a chance to live, and they don't die from the heart attack. And they'll tell you, the best thing that ever happened to me was that heart attack. It brought me back. My cousin told me before he died of AIDS, the best thing that happened to me was AIDS. It brought me back to my family. It brought me back to God. It brought me back to peace. And now I'm not afraid. When I go home, I know where I'm going. Great opportunity to lay down one's life, to understand God's love, and to figure out what He's chosen us for. Thank you for being with us. May each day bring you closer in your walk with the Lord. God bless you.